I'm Mark Saxon. This is Scott Braun, and he has taken time out of his busy schedule to join us here on Blue Collar Sports Talk, the executive producer and host of Foul Territory. Man, what an impressive resume. Thank you again. Where does the journey start for Scott, and how did you get to where you're at?
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it, and props to what you're doing. I feel the drive and the everyday grind of just trying to provide cool content to everyone that's willing to subscribe and to listen and to watch what you're doing. So that's exactly how I've entered the creator world, the new media world, whatever people want to call it. That's how I followed sports content for a long time. I came from a more traditional legacy media outlet in working for Major League Baseball. I love and obsess over the podcast world, the YouTube world, and just creating new cool shows. I love the gambling space as well, which we do a lot of work with on the baseball side. So I'm a baseball lover. I wanted to continue that, but I wanted to do it more in the way that I like to consume content. I also just love working with talent and players. And that's what we're able to do with Foul Territory. So with all of that, eventually ideas became reality. I left my old job and said, hey, I want to try something new. And it's been everything I expected it to be and more. Happier than ever doing it in my daily life, which is also super important, so that you're doing what you want to do, not just what you aspired to do, but then you're doing what you want to do currently, which is two different things as well, right? I had a dream to be, a traditional broadcaster since I was 10 years old. And that dream has now just pivoted slightly over to new media. So I'm loving it.
That's awesome. I share that as ever since I was a kid. I've always wanted to be a broadcaster and always wanted to talk sports. And hey, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right?
100%. I love what I'm doing every day. I'm excited. I've taken, I think, 4 days off of our show this year, and we are Monday through Friday. And I'm talking about just in front of the camera, phone, whatever you want to call it. We're obviously working every day behind the scenes, but there were 4 days that I didn't do the show and I missed it, which, in the past I loved doing what I was doing, but when I was off, I was off. In this case, something happens or I'm just watching the show from Mexico where I was away and I'm like, oh, I wish I was on. But that's the definition of loving what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So walk us through it, man. That's something I can only dream of, to work with talent next to players, people who've actually been in the game, seen it from places that, most of us will never see it from. How's that like, doing that every day?
It's awesome. I have been fortunate to work in baseball for a long time. And I just think that baseball has become a very underrated sport in terms of the personalities and in terms of how cool it is. Because if you're not around it to the extent that people in the industry are, you might be missing that there's nonstop drama and very strong opinions and very entertaining personalities. I think there's just been a problem with bringing those personalities to light that the NFL and the NBA and even college sports to an extent have not had a problem with. It's just updating with the times. And I felt like our sport was falling behind on that front in some ways. And the easiest way to tell that is when there is content that you're looking for that doesn't exist. And that's when you start your own brand or company. So that's how this came about. And that's why it's been so fun to work with former players like AJ Pierzynski and Adam Jones and Todd Frazier and Eric Kratz and Jason Kipnis and Lorenzo Cain and Brock Holt. And then a few others that have worked with us on more of a one-off basis, like a Jonathan Papelbon or Jerry Blevins. And then the writer and insider side, like a Ken Rosenthal and many other writers that we work with on a daily basis that come on our show. That is super fun. And they all have that same passion for talking about the game and doing it authentically, which you can do when you're, say, on YouTube and not, on a TV channel that's going to limit you, cursing and also how much time you have before hitting a commercial break. We have some of that, but it's not the same. There are many less rules with what we're doing now versus what I did in the past. And I am very appreciative of that.
I understand that completely. Even some of the players that we've had on Like right now, we've got a couple of players that we have frequently on, and they're playing winter ball, and they'll curse on our show, and they're just being themselves, and you get to see them, and they're relaxed, and then they're like, oh no, and I'm like, no, wait, we're on YouTube here, man, you're clear, just be you, and getting to see the real side. I think you nailed it right on the head. That's something that we get deprived from, in the world of baseball. One, the most romantic sport on the face of the planet, and we don't get to see enough of the guys when they're fired up, when they're passionate, or when they're goofing around. Like I played ball all the way up until JUCO, and the personalities that go inside the clubhouse or the dugout, that right there is just the most amazing part of baseball, in my opinion. And it's almost as exciting as a triple, turn from a double and everything like that.
Yeah, and with media, what's proprietary is not what you're doing, it's who you're doing it with. So it's just being able to utilize talent who have a gift of making a strong opinion on something, entertaining people, interviewing people, and asking the right questions. And in baseball, we just wanted to take people more inside the clubhouse, but in a unique way. When a major story breaks, something happens. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is an easy example right now. What would players be saying in the clubhouse about this, or other people that are in the know? And can you bring those conversations out in public? And we've been able to do that consistently. And that's created really endless viral moments within the baseball sphere. Like almost every day, there's something that pops up within our show, whether it's an opinion from one of our hosts or an answer to a question from an insider or a current player. It gets picked up by many other publications, and I think adds to our sport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Only a world I can dream to be a part of. And speaking of Ohtani, let's just go right into that. $700 million, the biggest contract in all of sports. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Now, I am an avid Padres fan, and I am convinced that anything LA is the devil. And I cannot believe that's where that man ended up. And I am disappointed. What's your thoughts?
Well, the Dodgers were the heavy favorite the entire time, and it's exactly what happens.
Absolutely.
I mean, anyone who was following the game closely had a hard time not putting them number one. I think the only time that the Dodgers were not number one was for like a 24-hour period where there was fake news circulating.
Yep.
I always remember he signed on a Saturday. It was the day before, so a Friday, when you start to hear about him going on a plane to Toronto, but it was not his plane. It's the Shark Tank dude's plane. So
the Drake curse, huh?
It's what?
The Drake curse took effect, huh?
What's the effect?
The Drake curse.
Oh, the Drake curse.
Took
wearing
effect.
The uniform.
Yep.
Little jersey action too soon. Yeah, I mean, I give Toronto credit. It sounds like they were definitely pretty heavily involved in recruiting him, and it would have been such a big boost to their franchise and to really the entire country of Canada. But he wanted to be in that location. I think he wanted to be a Dodger as soon as he started looking into Major League Baseball. And the reason he didn't is because the National League at the time didn't have a designated hitter. Ohtani is all about breaking the norm and being a unicorn, as many people call him. Well, that would have been very difficult to do if he had to play in the outfield and be a pitcher. And he's gone through his share of injuries with his elbow already. So the Dodgers weren't in a position to offer him that, even though they were a finalist for him during his first go round. The Dodgers are also the team that can best promise playoff contention every year. And that's clearly what matters to a guy that I think cared about that all along, but especially cares about that when he's just wasted a good chunk of prime years and now has PTSD from playing on an Angels team that's just not been good and not well run. So it made too much sense, and it ended up happening that way. And the one thing on the 700 million, it's flashy, but it is deferred. I mean, it's awesome, but when you learn about how the deferrals work, and the Dodgers are very smart on the finance side, the actual value is what people should be looking at. So the actual value is in the mid 400s, which is actually less than I thought he was going to get. I thought he was going to surpass 500 million, and he didn't. And I give him credit. He and his camp brought that offer to the Dodgers. So it's not like the Dodgers were trying to pull a fast one on him. That's what Stan Kasten, for example, the president of the Dodgers, said publicly recently, that they were like, excuse me, 97 or 8% of that is deferred. That's what you want. Okay. But I think the flash of that 700 number, and also for him financially, he's making so much current money on endorsements, worlds more than any other player, like on multiples of that, right? I mean, maybe there's a second place player like a Trout making $5 million a year, and Ohtani's making anywhere from like $30 to $70 million a year. I've seen numbers all over the map, but he's fine. He doesn't need any more than that. He seems like a pretty simple guy anyway. And so he gets to make that much for many years and then start kicking in the $68 million a year 10 years from now. So good for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was one of the things I was going to bring up, was how, all the deferrals. And when I was doing my homework on it, I couldn't believe how well orchestrated that and structured that deal was, based out of his camp. And, like you were saying as well, with the drive of the playoffs coming from the Dodgers just showing up every year and just not going away no matter what roster they throw out. And, the Angels having two of the best players on the face of the planet and not being able to do anything, not adding anything to that pitching staff to give any help, not adding any extra bats. That's got to be tough year after year and, frustrating. But, good on Ohtani. My heart's breaking. My heart's breaking that NL West is just slipping out of my boys' reach more and more.
They had their window.
They did.
I don't think it's necessarily over. I mean, I think the Padres could be a decent ball club this coming season. It, of course, sucks to lose Soto. I think they got a really nice return package from the Yankees in that deal. But the Padres window the last few years was very promising, and they just came up short. This year was by far the most disappointing year really in Padres history. Top 3 payroll. It's not even just what was on paper. It's the fact that what was on paper actually mostly performed pretty well. Yep. But when you put all of the parts together, it just did not give the results that you would have thought would have come out, right? You would have, if I told you, hey, the Padres have a top 3 payroll, this is their roster, and they don't make the playoffs, then you would have said, oh, well, Soto must have gone down for the year. They must have not gotten much out of Darvish and Hader, right? And Tatis. And then you look at their individual numbers and you're like, oh, they all had good years. Oh, and wait, Ha-Seong Kim had basically a breakout season and was one of the better players overall in the league. Elite defense, and his offense was better. So you start going down the line. Sure, like Jake Cronenworth was not good and was in more of a decline even than he was the year before. But for the most part, they had a lot of strong individual performances, and they just couldn't win close games. They could not win extra inning games, and that ultimately burned them.
Right. And the close games, the extra inning games killed us, especially when, Musgrove wasn't necessarily completely healthy throughout the year. That kind of hurt. Waka coming in actually had a great year. I mean, from what he was expected. So, I mean, there was
Lugo too.
Yeah, Lugo too. Yeah. I was happy that we re-signed him. I mean, and then Snell. Huh?
What? Well, now he's a Royal.
No, Waka is. I thought we re-signed Lugo right before the winter meetings.
Waka and Lugo are both Royals.
Oh, I knew Waka went. I could have sworn we re-signed Lugo. My attention has really been on we haven't signed Snell after a Cy Young Award year.
He's not coming back.
I don't think so either. But
no, I can tell you 0% chance.
No,
because I only work in baseball, right? I cannot tell you about San Diego's football team. That's half of a joke. But I could not tell you much about what's going on in the other sports right now, or speak about it, in the same way that I could baseball. But I can tell you just about everything going on, say with the Padres, their payroll. So they've had to get really crafty because they are cutting their payroll. They were top 3. They were in like the 250-ish range, and it's going to likely be 200 or even below. That's a lot of money to cut in one season. It's still a very healthy payroll for a quote small market team. And I love the way that the Padres have run themselves for the most part as a business organization. they're giving a lot back to the city by investing in talent and just making it a really fun atmosphere to go to for a ball game. The results have not all been there. I think some of that has had to do with AJ Preller in the front office and the communication lines there, which I think is a little bit on the hot seat right now. But I do think the Padres have no chance of bringing back Blake Snell, Josh Hader, etc. They've spent so much money on some stars already. They're going to be playing at the margins, and they've already been beaten out. They offered Seth Lugo a contract. The Royals offered him a much better deal. They who else? They offered Jung-Hoo Lee, who is now a San Francisco Giant. They offered him a contract. According to reports from people I trust, it was well short of what the Giants offered him. So you're used to them beating everyone out now for years. You can't do that with every free agent. I mean, there are teams like the Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Dodgers, Red Sox, etc., and even I guess the Royals, if they don't spend any money, and now they do, who are going to beat out the Padres on players.
Right. And what hurts even more is what sucks about it is pitching is what killed us in the last few years, and that's what we're losing most right now. I mean, granted, the deal with the Yankees was great, adding some arms, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think we'll have enough in the tank.
No, and they just brought over, or it sounds like it hasn't been completed yet. Matsui was a big closer in the NPB in Japan for many years. I think he's going to be good, and that's who they're hoping is the much cheaper Josh Hader replacement. But yes, they lost, I think, almost half the innings that they had from last season. And, that includes someone like Nick Martinez, who signed with the Cincinnati Reds. Yeah. So they'll have to do a lot to replace all of that. They're starting on that front, but they've got a ways to go to complete the amount of innings that they need to fill.
Oh, absolutely. And then, like I said, that was the killer for me, and just watching everybody go, and now getting, a solid direction. Like, here at Blue Collar, we don't really have insider information. We just wait for it to come in. But man, I can't tell you the amount of heartbreak. And now, mind you, I've been a fan since I was a kid. So I went to Padres games at the Murph, at Qualcomm, right? We were going, I was there for the 98 World Series. I was there for that heartbreak and watching Mr. Padre. I thought this was our time. The window is closing, and I am scared.
Yeah, it's tough when you see what the Dodgers are doing and what the Diamondbacks are doing. They made it to the World Series, and they've had a really nice offseason too. They brought in Eduardo Rodriguez to help fill some innings and be a number 3 or 4 starter for them behind Gallen and Merrill Kelly and Brandon Pfaadt. And they're developing a nice little rotation there. I still think they're going to add another bat. They already did add Eugenio Suarez, who was a nice addition for them as well. But I think, you've seen rumors about them being involved in someone like either Justin Turner or JD Martinez coming back to that team, which would be huge. So they're going to be a pain in the ass to deal with because they're built for the modern brand of baseball, which is more chaotic and more base running. That matters for a team like that when the stolen base numbers were up by, I think, like 40% this year, the Corbin Carroll type players. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, it's become a really tough division. And also, I think the Giants will be better. I don't know how much better, but they acquired Lee. I think they're going to acquire 1 or 2 other pretty big names. I think they're the front runner for Blake Snell. So it's going to get very challenging in the NL West very quickly.
Absolutely. And it's going to be challenging for years to come because that Diamondbacks roster is extremely young. And they've got nothing but the future ahead of them.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks look like they're going to be a pain in the ass for a while. They've been the quickest team to adapt to the rule changes that have affected the sport. And I think that was a big reason why they made it to that point in the playoffs being basically the second place finisher in Major League Baseball. So it's always been a pretty difficult division, especially when you have a team that consistently now over a decade span has always made the playoffs and really always wins the division, aside from, 2021 with the Giants just sneaking past them. So it's tough for San Diego to make noise. And last year was the year where I thought it was going to all come together. So I'm not discounting them because there are 3 wildcard spots for a reason. It does give teams like the Marlins this past season and even the Diamondbacks this past season a chance. And even some teams that just finished on the outside looking in, like the Cincinnati Reds, having a chance at a postseason spot. if you told me that the Padres made the playoffs as a wild card team next season, I would not be surprised at all. Like there are a few teams that I would be surprised, right? If you told me we go division by division, if you told me the Nationals made the playoffs this year, I'd be shocked. If you told me that the Pirates make the playoffs this year, I'd be shocked. But the Padres are kind of in the middle, right? I could see them winning, 85-ish games and sneaking their way into a postseason spot. I'm not necessarily predicting that right now because I need to see what else they're doing, but they are still active. I do like the way that they are always trying to improve, even now with the roadblock of having to spend a little less money.
Right, absolutely. And that's the thing too, is the amount of competition with that extra wild card spot too, on top of it all. That's what makes those extra inning games, those close games, that's what makes those even more important than they ever have been in the past, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Now, another team I would like to touch on just before I let you go here, the Yankees, right? So they added Soto, Stanton, who's what? I mean, I think Boone said it. They got to come up with an answer for the 40 games that he plays a year. Where do you think they stand, not only with Yamamoto, but also any future signings going ahead to try and make a dent in that division?
I think Yamamoto is going to sign super, super soon. I predicted before. We did a poll question the other day on our show, and I predicted before Christmas. So he's on the clock. He's only got a few days to go.
That's it.
So I think he's going to sign. I think that the strong front runners are the Yankees 1, if I'm power ranking it, the Dodgers 2, the Mets 3, and then the rest of the pack. That's my opinion. Maybe I'd put like the Giants 4 just because I think they could potentially offer more money because they've got money to spend and they're desperately looking for more franchise players to build around. But do get the feeling that Yamamoto was a Yanks fan. He loves the tradition of the brand. I think he'd love being in New York. And if the money is right or close enough, that's his first choice. Now, the Yankees don't operate like they used to. There's a chance that the Yankees' top offer is $250 million and the Mets' top offer or the Dodgers' top offer is $300 million. There is a breaking point for any player where they say, too much of a price difference for me. Sorry, I'm going to go to the team that wants me more. But at least for now, I think it would be a travesty if the Yankees do not spend what it takes to get a player that they're clearly highly interested in. Because imagine this. Let's say Yamamoto ends up signing with the Mets, right? That would be actually worst case scenario.
Right.
You find out that the team across town that's often played second fiddle, that's basically always played second fiddle aside from a few years, ended up outbidding them for a player that wanted to potentially be on the other side of town. That would be a really bad PR look for a team that just had a really positive PR look by trading for Juan Soto. So the Yankees should be better this year. And they'll pivot if they somehow don't get Yamamoto, or maybe he really wants to be in LA and play with Ohtani. And if that's the case, I think the Yankees will go right down the list. They'll look at Jordan Montgomery, who they've already had as part of their organization. They'll look at many of the big relief pitching options, which have not signed yet, like a Josh Hader or Jordan Hicks. And they'll still have quite a few moves left in them if it's not Yamamoto.
Right. I like it. Now, before we end it, I know you're busy. I don't want to keep you too long. Way too early 2024 World Series prediction. Who you got?
We don't even have half of the major free agents signed yet. And you're pressing me on World Series?
Yeah.
I could just literally throw, shit on the wall. I mean,
hey, it might stick. It might stick.
Sure. But also, I'll change it 5 times between now and then. I mean, generally, we'll do World Series predictions like a couple days before the season starts. And those are the ones that you try and kind of hang your hat on. Right. So sure, if we want to do something right now, I'll chalk it up just without having to do too much digging and put, say, the Dodgers in on the National League side, assuming that Ohtani goes there and just tears it up on the batting side of things, and that they have a really successful season with the pitching that they acquire, in addition to Tyler Glasnow, who's now been added to the mix for them. And on the American League side right now, let's just go with a rematch for now, or at least on the AL side, where the Rangers get back in and they play the Dodgers and they fall to the Dodgers. I think the thing to keep in mind with the Rangers is how many players will be coming back for them as additions during the season. I like the young talent that they have, like an Evan Carter, who really showed himself in the playoffs, but they have more strong prospects because they were in the rebuilding phase and then they spent on top of that. But you still have guys like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien in their prime. Max Scherzer's hurt. He's coming back mid-season. Jacob deGrom, coming off Tommy John surgery, is going to come back, I believe, in August. They signed Tyler Mahle, who I really like, and he's going to come back, I think, towards the end of the year, maybe August or September. They might even sign Clayton Kershaw, too. They might have like a rotation full of stars that even if 2 out of those 4 come back and they're any shape of what they used to be, it could be a massive, massive addition for them. So I just really like the way that they've been running their operation over the past couple of years with Chris Young taking over as their GM. So there's your super, super early World Series for Dodgers over the Rangers.
I like it. And no, and I do. I love the Rangers. They're also in one of my picks, depending on how they sign everybody, but how they've been working everything, and the addition of Bruce Bochy, who's been there and done that how many different times now, and I mean, it's great from top to bottom. So
yeah, that would be the Corey Seager series too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Scott, like I said, I don't want to keep you all night. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed your time here on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mark. Great to meet you and chat with you on here, and good luck with raising the profile of the platform.
Appreciate it, man. You have a good Christmas, and take care.
Thanks. You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.